moving quickly, another handoff to Rankin. Rankin finds a hole, he's at the 30, makes it to the 20, he's got one man to beat. Rankin walks into the end zone. Into the backfield, Braden Wright looks over top, he's going to try to find a man, he's got Alec Tatum. Tatum bobbles it, but he's in the end zone. What a connection between Braden Wright and Alec Tatum. Handoff to Rankin, Rankin right up the middle, and he's in the end zone for a Bearcat touchdown.
You that the views expressed in today's show do not reflect the views of KZLX, KNWT, or Northwest Missouri State University. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Nolan Brooks and Austin McNorton. We've got a busy 3 hours here for you. We're going to talk some Northwest football coming up first. We've got some college football in the rest of Division I, as well as the NFL. And then we're going to go back, talk about the MIAA Media Day. We had basketball talk going on. We have a little bit of that coming in later, as well as Northwest volleyball. First time hosting WSK, it's a career milestone for me. I just want to point that out first. Speaking of things that are first, we're going to talk about Northwest Missouri State football first, and they're the number 1 team in the MIAA, fittingly. We're going to talk about how we got there against Emporia State last week, a close game at that. I think Northwest was actually trailing at the half even. And, guys, let's talk about how that went last week.
Yeah, I mean, this game was a true test. It's tough to go on the road in the MIAA. We've attested to that all season long. The past couple years, it's always a topic of conversation to say, well, how are you going to get tested this week on the road in the MIAA? And, I mean, Emporia State showed up to play. I mean, the record might not show for it, but, man, this was kind of similar to Central Oklahoma last year. Central Oklahoma sitting about 500, go on the road, and they play a tough game. Luckily, Northwest comes out on top in this one, but it was a true test for the Bearcats.
And I think that's kind of one of those games where you're coming off a win against UCO where just nothing went wrong. I mean, you started out that game so hot and everything came so easy because of how well you played. And we talked about it on WSK, and we've talked about it just around the building about how that's a team, Northwest, if they play like that, they win the national championship. And so I think when you come off of a win like that, you're like, oh, man, I mean, who's going to beat us? And then you're like, oh, well, you see some new looks that Emporia State brings, and you don't expect some things. You're like, why isn't it coming as easy to us this time, you know? And maybe there's even a case of Northwest looking ahead, you know, and saying, oh, well, we just killed UCO, so now, I mean, this is nothing. We'll just get ready for Pitt State. And no matter what, and I've always believed this, you can always say that, oh, well, we take it one game at a time. You know, we take it one game at a time and we never overlook anyone. You can say all of that, but when you know you're playing Pitt State in Arrowhead the following week, it's tough not to look over Emporia State. I mean, it really is. It's just like human nature to say, oh, well, we're better than them. So, you know, yeah, we can say, oh, let's take it one game at a time, and this is going to be a tough team to play, and we're on the road, and it's going to be all this and that. But you know, saying, we're better, we'll win, and we just got to get ready for Pitt State. You know that's in the back of their mind. So then they come out and they're like, wow, Emporia State's actually come out pretty solid to start this football game. But in the end, and I think this attributes to all levels of football, of all sports, really, good teams find a way to win football games. No matter how they start out, they find a way to win. And that's what Northwest did.
And you mentioned it was a tough game. They kind of overlooked, and we talked last week about it possibly being a trap game for Northwest.
Yep, exactly.
After the big blowout win, you come in, you're down at half, you come back the second half, you outscore Emporia State. I believe it was 22-6 or something, 22-3, something like that. It was just an impressive second half by that team to be able to come back and combat that with what you were doing in the first half. You were struggling on offense. The box score doesn't look fitting for kind of how it played out. Yeah, you outscore in the second half 22-6. You look at Braden Wright, just 87 yards passing, a touchdown, and interception. So definitely not bouncing back well from that career game that he had the week before.
Yeah, and before that UCO game, I mean, he had 2 more career games. So, I mean, you know, Braden Wright was kind of riding high and probably, like we've been saying, probably overlooked Emporia. Emporia historically has not been one of the good teams in the MIAA. I mean, they've found recent success back a few years ago, making a couple playoffs, but now they've kind of gone back down. the rankings in the MIAA, and so this was definitely a trap game, and especially with Arrowhead now this week. But it's hard not to look and say, hey, we're going to play in an NFL stadium, the same stadium that Pat Mahomes plays in, the MVP. I mean, that's hard not to look at it and be excited, and it's also a top 15 matchup. So, I mean, it's good that the Bearcats came out and fixed their mistakes at halftime and got the win. But if you're Northwest, you got to take those mistakes and not, you have a trap game like this later down the line, you can't play the same way.
To the Weekend Sports Kickoff on X106.
And welcome back to the Weekend Sports Kickoff. Andrew Botwinick, Sam Steinmeier, and Nolan Brooks with you now because Austin, as you heard before we took the break, is now gone. We're going to go now back into the baseball MLB postseason picks, as well as everybody going now towards the end of the season. They're all getting close to that championship run. We're going to take a quick update of what happened the last round, how the series kind of finished out. So we'll go ahead and start with Sam. You might want to plug your ears for this one. Houston beats out the Rays in their series. They win that one 3-2. And in a Game 5 that a lot of people didn't pick the Rays to even get to Game 5. I'm sure we'll have Sam come on and talk about that one for a second. Washington beats out the Dodgers in 5 games. They win theirs 3-2. St. Louis wins 3-2 in theirs. The Yankees have no problem beating out the Twins. They win 3-0. And then I think that might have just been it.
Yeah, that's it.
I was gonna say, I think that was just it.
Yeah,
I thought
that was
there,
it.
for some reason there was
the
another
wild
team.
cards were just one game series. So
Yeah.
And I woke up today and I was dreading this segment. I was like, I don't want to talk about it. So I'm going to start with the Yankees first because I was delay it as much as I can. They destroyed the Twins as they always do. The Twins have now lost 16 postseason games in a row. 13 of them have been to the New York Yankees, and they just owned the Twins, just up and down, pitching, defense, hitting. Didi Gregorius had an amazing series for the Yankees, hitting a grand slam in, I believe, game 1 or 2, and it was just outright domination from the Bronx Bombers.
Well, and this was exactly the performance you wanted, or the Yankees were bringing onto the table. When we talked about Tampa Bay and Oakland going into the playoffs, we said they were more the AL teams that were more complete. They maybe have the bullpens and a little more balanced offense. And man, oh man, the Twins were a home run hitting team, and they got shut down.
They didn't get much home runs.
Exactly. So, you saw New York come together and turn into a pitching and home run hitting team, whereas, in the regular season, their pitching was almost run thin. A lot of injuries, but they're all back now. They're all healthy, and, they don't even have Giancarlo Stanton on the field, and they're still hitting home runs. So, this team is legit. The Yankees are, it's not weird to say, but the Yankees are back. This is the Yankees team that you saw with Jeter, and you saw with Teixeira, and you saw in the early 2000s playing the Red Sox every other year. So no surprise that the Yankees go out and sweep in the first or in the first round.
And you also mentioned that they're kind of revamping themselves. They bring back, I believe, CC Sabathia for this series. I think he's activated. Not sure if he'll actually get a lot of playing time in it, but they've activated a guy that's been there with the Yankees before. He's been on this team for almost 2 decades now, I would imagine, it seems like, and he is a very pivotal player in this matchup. We'll look at the matchup now as they stand. The Yankees are playing Houston, and then St. Louis, as we mentioned, playing Washington, and this one fights for getting to the actual championship match.
Well, yeah, and this is lining up to be a bit more interesting. We said LA was a World Series worthy team, and rightfully so. When you win 100 games, you're almost expected to go to the World Series. But is it coincidence that the Nationals don't have Bryce Harper and they magically get over the first round hump?
I don't think Bryce Harper was the key. I think it's just they're a good team. They have
they've had the pieces.
They have Anthony Rendon, who is a perennial MVP candidate. They have Juan Soto, who is very young and very talented, and they still have Scherzer and Strasburg. The only really question marks coming into the season was that bullpen. And the bullpen has done good so far. And there's nothing that says this team can't make the World Series. I mean, they are running into a tough task in the Cardinals, who put up a postseason record 10 runs in that Game 5. And I know we were watching it in practicum, and man, what an offensive display that St. Louis put up in that game.
Well, yeah, and I mean, this was I know it was impressive to see St. Louis put up 10 runs. That was just an Atlanta meltdown. I mean, that was awful. That the last time you saw a meltdown like that was the Falcons in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. So I mean,
unfortunately, same town.
Exactly. So I mean, makes it even worse. It hits home a little bit worse. But St. Louis coming into this, we talked about how Washington and St. Louis were those teams where they're sleepers simply because their record might not be as high as the LA or the Atlanta, and you're like, well, maybe they're not as good. They can win a couple games. Well, now both those teams are out. LA and Atlanta are both done, and your sleeper teams per se are playing each other in the NLCS. So, I mean, on the American League side, you're not surprised. Houston and the Yankees, two best teams of baseball right now, playing each other in the AL. I mean, really, there's not any way around that. And then St. Louis and Washington are just playing all-around good team baseball. You're seeing their offense produce and back up their pitching. And then it makes their bullpen, like Sam, you mentioned that the Nationals struggled with the bullpen. Well, now they have run scoring, and that supported them, made their bullpen's life a little bit easier.
And you mentioned, I know this was a while ago, I was waiting, I had it in the back of my mind there. You mentioned Bryce Harper leaving the Nationals, going to the Phillies. Seems like on the Phillies, they're having some issues as well. They just fired their head coach, Gabe Kapler, in that one. They're possibly looking to hire Kurt Schilling. He is a name that's been thrown into the ring as well.
Yeah.
We'll see about that one.
There is a lot of names being thrown into the manner. Like, I know the Angels are looking at Joe Madden, and I know Joe Girardi, who's been on the call for the majority of the Astros-Rays series. He was being pestered by his colleagues about where he's going to go and like if he has any meetings. So there's a lot of places that are going to have new faces leading the team, and it's going to be interesting to see for next year.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. And I think it feels like Washington is running on that a little bit. They don't show it directly. They're not like, look what we're doing without Bryce Harper. The only one that's doing that is ESPN. ESPN is making that a headline right now, that they're playing this way without Bryce Harper. But maybe it fuels the fire a little bit that they're over the hump, almost. If they make the World Series, then they've definitely broken past a barrier that they just couldn't get to. And, St. Louis, you're not surprised to see back in there. 11-time World Series champions. I mean, they're the real deal. They have the resume. It'll be interesting to see in the Houston and New York spectrum. Houston has the bullpen. I like their starting rotation too, a lot more than I like New York's. And so really, I think you're going to see Houston take their team mentality that they've had the past couple of years and maybe use it to their advantage to take down the home run hitting Yankees. But I could easily see that going 7 games. I think you're going to see 2 7-game series here easily.
And you mentioned the Astros pitching. The only one that looked human in that series was Zach Greinke. And, I know Verlander did lose a game, but that was on 3 days rest. He's going to have normal rest now. He's not going to do that. He's going to be Justin Verlander. The only one who looked not very good on normal rest was Zach Greinke. And so if you're the Yankees, you can look at that and say, hey, this guy struggled against the Rays. We have a better lineup than the Rays. We can capitalize on that.
And you look at, we'll go to the NL first. We'll go to the Nationals and the Cardinals in this one. Some of the big things to look out for are the bats that the Cardinals have, and they've historically been. So they've had some of their best players come out in the postseason. Colton Wong being one of those guys. He's been tremendous in the postseason. You look at Paul Goldschmidt and Marcell Ozuna. They both batted .429. 9 of 21 in the last series, each hitting a pair of home runs, driving in 7 RBIs. They hit the ball well. You look at the big three for the Nationals. You have Steven Strasburg, Patrick Corbin, Max Scherzer. They are a great trio for what could be a 7-game series. As Nolan mentioned, this could go 7 series. The bullpen, possibly, we'll see with the Nationals bullpen. It looks like it's been back and forth. They've had good games. They've had bad games throughout the regular season. They had the worst ERA in the big leagues at 5.66 in terms of the bullpen. We'll see, though. But this series, as Nolan mentioned, I could see it going 7, or I could also see it quickly moving towards St. Louis' side if they come out strong like they did against Atlanta.
And honestly, that's really what if you're St. Louis, you want to do. I mean, obviously, you're not going to score 10 runs in the first inning in every single game. While that would be ideal, and that would be great, and you probably win, you'd probably be through to the World Series real quick. And, I mean, that's just not going to happen. So, I agree, Andrew. I think St. Louis is really trying to utilize the weaknesses of this Nationals team, who is very inexperienced in this part of the playoff race. They are. The last time they were in the NLCS, they were the Montreal Expos. I mean, that was a long time ago. So this is a completely different program, different team, logo, color scheme, whatever you want to say about it. So, look, I mean, St. Louis is definitely going to try to exploit this Nationals team. But don't be surprised if Washington takes advantage of the fact that this is a whole new territory for them, essentially, and they're going to go out and take an opportunity here. Now, if you look over at the AL side, the Yankees, nothing new. This is their home ground right here. This is their home turf, is to be in the playoffs, looking to get to the World Series here. And Houston, they've now re-solidified themselves. Me and you, Andrew, we were talking with Matt about how in 2005 the Astros were phenomenal with Craig Biggio, Jeff Bagwell, Lance Berkman. They were unreal, and I think you're at that level, if not better now. And you have a full team. You have your pitching and you have your scoring. So really, it's going to come down to, can Houston outpitch the home run hitters, and if they can, is their offense going to step up and outscore them? And then on the other side, it's going to be more strategizing, see who can outlast. The St. Louis and Washington is probably going to be a little bit closer games, whereas Houston and the Yankees, you might see a game go to the Yankees' favor where they win 6-2 because of home runs. And then you see a game go to Houston because their pitching shuts down the hitters of New York and they win 4-0 or something like that. So 2 very different dynamics on both sides.
And you look back and forth now. We're going to look at both of these guys' games once. It looks like Houston and the Yankees will have their game 1 this Saturday, tomorrow, October 12th. That's going to be at Minute Maid. It's going to be in Houston, a 7:08 p.m. first pitch is kind of a weird, they always have the weird times for postseason baseball. 7:08 pitch. It's going to be Zach Greinke for the Astros. Haven't really named a pitcher yet for the Yankees, so we'll see on that one. And then you look on the flip side, it's going to be Washington and the Cardinals. They're going to start their game tonight, Friday, October 11th. It's going to be a 7:08 pitch for them as well. It's going to be Mike Mikolas versus Anibal Sanchez, and this is going to be a good one. Who do we all have going to the World Series? I know Sam had Tampa Bay Rays, and we'll get more into that one. I think he wanted to have the spotlight for a second here.
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Sam.
So I believe this will be the worst Rays team that you will see in the next 5 years. I have a quote that I saw on Twitter today. Someone put out on some Rays post. It's from Winston Churchill. Now this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. And this is the end of the beginning of the Rays being good and in the playoffs. I think the Rays, no one thought they would make it to Game 5. No one even thought they'd make it out of the wild card. And I think that they showed Houston and the rest of the MLB that they're here and they're here to win and here to stay. And I'm just incredibly proud to call myself a Rays fan, even though it hurts right now. It's good memories. So as who I have going to the World Series, I think that looking at the Astros as much as I did in the ALDS, I think Garrett Cole is too good. Whenever he's pitching, he's going to win, and he's going to throw 10-plus strikeouts, So I have the Astros going from the AL side. On the NL side, it's a little bit different. I think that the Cardinals, just the way they played against the Braves, like going down the wire in a elimination game, just proving right out of the gate that the scoring 10 runs that they're better. So I'm going to have the Astros and the Cardinals in the World Series.
And you mentioned Garrett Cole. He's supposed to be pitching in Game 3. That's going to be the first game played in New York. He's going to sit out the first 2 because he just played, obviously, in Game 5 against the Rays. He's going to sit a game or 2 out. It's going to be Greinke first for the Astros. Game 2 is going to be Verlander, and then Game 3 is going to be Garrett Cole. An impressive 1-2-3 punch by the Astros. Flip side, you look at the Cardinals, there's really not a whole lot of players announced. Actually, for the Nationals, they have their next 4 guys up. It's going to be Mikolas, Wainwright, Flaherty, and Hudson, and then actually, that's for the Cardinals. I don't know why I thought that. But then for the Nationals, they have Sanchez and Scherzer. The Cardinals have their next 4 guys already set out there, ready to go. It's going to be interesting, and as Sam says, with his Rays there last season, you kind of give up the element of surprise that you had a lot of this year. There was a lot of speculation as to see where they're going to be playing next year, if they're going to be splitting time in Montreal, here, at Tampa. There are a lot of questions with that. I know it's a 162-game season. Welcome back to the Weekend Sports Kickoff. Andrew Botwinick, Sam Steinmeier, Nolan Brooks with you here for the last 10 minutes. This is the Crunch Time segment, Off My Rocker. This one's going to be a lot of fun. We already saw from the KNWT side in our production booth on the other side of us. We had some extra time. We said, if you guys have something, send it in. We'll talk about it. We'll go ahead and we'll start with theirs because it's just that good of a take. So KNWT Channel 8, we're streaming live on their Facebook page if you haven't already been aware. They're saying that Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills will match the Patriots record and own the tiebreaker, meaning that whenever these two teams meet, I believe in Week 16 of the NFL season in New England, they're saying that the Bills will own the tiebreaker and beat them that time, and the Patriots will be the 5 seed, and the Bills will be the 1st or the 2nd seed, probably behind or ahead of the Chiefs. So I'll go ahead and start. Looking at kind of who they play, aside from a couple of these games, yeah, I could see that because they play the Dolphins, they play the Eagles, they play the Eagles at home. They play the Redskins, the Browns, the Dolphins again, Broncos, Cowboys, which could be a good one. I think they'd probably lose that one. The Ravens, Steelers, Patriots, and the Jets. This is a 9-7 team, 10-6 team. This is a Bills team that makes the playoffs. The big thing is when the Patriots have their Week 9 through 14 stunt that they have, those 5 games that they play some tough opponents, how are the Patriots going to play? I don't think if it comes down to Week 16 and both of these teams are in contention for winning that division, the Patriots come away winning that division. But it would not surprise me if the Bills were a game or 2 behind the Patriots in this division.
They also have to go to Foxborough in that matchup. So even if they do match the Patriots up until this point and they're tied and this is the one who wins the division who wins this game, they're not winning that game. Because the Bills are not going to win in Foxborough. Tom Brady does not lose in Foxborough, and I don't think the Cowboys. I believe the Bills will lose to the Cowboys. The Browns, they have a lot of weapons. They could get rolling, and the Browns could win that game. They have to play the Ravens. The Ravens have been hot this year. They might lose that game. Actually, they probably will lose that game. And I don't think. And, they play the Eagles. The Eagles are tough. That's going to be a tough game. I don't think that the Bills will probably make a playoffs or get close to the playoffs. 9-7, I think, is a good area to put them at, Andrew. And they will not beat the Patriots in Foxborough for the AFC East title.
I don't think the Bills are even going to get close to playing a tiebreaker game, honestly. Oh, my.
The interesting thing, too, is since 2010, the Patriots are 16-3 against Buffalo. 2 of those losses, though, have came in Foxborough back in 2016 and 2014. So it's been a while since the Bills have given them some competition at home. But these 2 teams seem to play really close to one another. So I don't think it's out of the realm I just don't think that when it comes down to it, toward Week 16, we're going to see these two teams vying for that division, and Tom Brady will have them. If for some reason they played in a couple weeks, I could see a different way. In this situation, if it's Week 8, Week 9, you're still early on in the season playing each other, if the Bills squeak away with a win, I could see that happening. But in a Week 16 matchup, if you know it's coming down to the wire and you know that the Bills play the Jets the week after, if you're Tom Brady and the Patriots, you're not going to let that one slide past you.
No, absolutely not. That's why I don't think they'll even let them get to the. It's like I say that as if the Patriots control the Bills, but I don't think the Bills will even get the opportunity to play a tiebreaker.
So I think it's safe to say KNWT, you're off your rocker, Bradley and Sam Reeves in there.
Yeah.
We'll get them next time.